They earn it by way of miracles and different things that they bring to the life. You understand? Right? And so I've had spirits that for a long time, it took them a long time to earn something in my house. So I'd be going to the music, they'd be like, the spirit wants to die, I'd be like, yeah, you better do something. Right? And then we work it out. And then, okay, you done came through with this little miracle. And the spirit is going to make sure that I acknowledge that they were a part of this miracle. Like, hey, okay, so now you get a dog, right? Because anything else, you're just taking up space in my house.
And I refuse.
This is a reciprocal relationship. What you mean?
Another question, a basic question. People use Misa and Central interchangeably. Is there a difference? If there is a difference, what is the difference?
Okay, Misa just means mass, right? A Centro is a particular type of Misa that they perform in what they call Sanse in Puerto Rican spiritualism. It's like a church. So like every Sunday or every Thursday, the spiritualist church, it's open and they're having a mass. And they call it a Centro because everybody's sitting around in a circle. And the spirit calls different people to sit in the center and gives them what they would call consulta. It gives them conversation, right? But it's just interesting. It's like that's just petty stuff that people use, in terms of cultural context. Oh, it's not Misa, it's Central. It's like that's tomato. If you know what they talk about, it's a Central. It's a spiritual thing, period, right? Because now there are different types of Misas, right? When you get to people who are really, so like a lot of that stuff is kind of dying off. But there's these different Misas that they have. So there's this Misa that they talk about with non-spiritualists that's called the cordon, right? And the cordon is this rope where there's the person that's having it, that they're doing, or they're going to give the conversation to, and somebody else that's there to manage. And there's these 9 spiritualists who are mediums who are going to get possessed consecutively. Boom, 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 boom. And the 9 of them are going to come down and they're going to give this person conversation and do certain cleanings collectively to uplift the person's spiritual core, right? But that gets more into, and that's not, because there's no, what I want to say, codification to spiritualism like that. What we have to understand is like when it comes to these traditions, so as a palero, I can tell you that when I go to Cuba from different neighborhood to neighborhood, they got some different stuff going on, right? And they'll be like, what is that? That's wrong, right? And then you go to next door and they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, yeah, but we do it like this. So Ocha was the only system that was codified to a particular fundamental rules and regulations to the system, right? With spiritualism, there are different little customs that people have that if it works, vaya con Dios, go with God. You understand? Because I'm not going to tell you not to do something if it works. Why would I tell you to stop? You know what I mean? Like if you got to knock on the thing 3 times and spin around, do all that, that's fine. If it works for you, I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not codified. There's no regular espiritismo. Okay? Because the spirits necessarily dictate their customs of what they're into. You feel me? So some spirits be like, man, don't drink no rum around me. And they drink coffee. So you understand? So and so people get into that. That's just being petty. They just, trying to shake the tree.
And then, finally, unless people have other questions, I wanted to get into, because I don't think people talk about this enough, the different type of spirits. Like I've seen animal spirit guides. You talked about spirits that are not that are not humans. I believe Ogun talks about that, like spirit guides that come from other planets, etc., etc. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
Well, they have what they call commissions, los comisiones in the spiritismo, right? And los comisiones deal with archetypes, and these archetypes deal with different cultural customs and wisdoms. And they're there to be able to make sense of where this wisdom and where this personality is coming from. What is the moral foundation for the wisdom, right? So in the Los Comisiones, they have Las Madamas, right? They have this Manny archetype of the mother, of the nurturer, the wet nurse, who always is cool, calm, and collective. She has a particular sense of herbal information and how to heal the sick, but she's a nurturer, right? Then you have Los Comisiones of Los Indios, and these might be spirits that are Native American, and some of their customs might be forgotten, but they can identify with certain Native American aesthetics that allows them to be remembered, right? And with them, there comes a certain particular amount of medicine and different healing practices. Los Chinos, and you have the people that have Oriental or Asian influenced spirits that have Asian wisdom and medicine and things of that nature. So these commissions allow us to grasp directly, geographically, where this information and this wisdom comes from, right? Not all, I shouldn't say, species of spirits are categorized. So I've personally been in the Misa, where I was in the Misa one day and I was tripping out because I just kept seeing cats walking through, and I was like, what the fuck is going on in here? So I had to ask, like, yo, what's up with the cats? And the lady was like, oh yeah, when we bought the house, there was mad cats in here and we had to get rid of the cats. And I was like, oh, okay, I ain't tripping, right? And so that, you know, some things are not just set in stone. There's no footnotes for it. You're going to see something that you might not be able to identify. You're going to have to, you know what I'm saying? You're going to have to be the test run. But, and then there was the spirit, right? And you're going to have to be like, categorize it because, you know, this is a work in progress. Nonetheless, it's a work in progress and it's constantly expounding. You understand? So, and you're going to have archetypes that are going to start to necessarily. So, I have a street eagle, right? And for a long time, I was like, he's a figment of my imagination. Until one day, my uncle was like, "Hey, who is that?" And I was like, "You see that?" He was like, "Yeah, he be following you and shit." Blah blah blah. Anyway. That street eagle is a byproduct of the time and the era and the place that I grew up, right? I grew up around a lot of crime and all drug dealers and this and that, and some of them were cool with me, and that energy has to have a way to funnel itself. That information, those energies, they find a way to necessarily make sense of themselves. And so they got this archetype. There's this spirit that come down with, and he be talking all types of street shit. But it's a wisdom that he gives out for those that are stuck in those circumstances, right? And so this spiritualism thing is not set in stone because there are things happening and phenomena is always unfolding that will always expound the system in the broadness of it. You understand? Because one of the things that I'm going to prophesize to you guys right now is understand that in Yoruba land, they're going to have to necessarily get with some spiritualism because there's going to be decades of family people who that when they start to indulge in Orisha, they're going to have ancestors that were either Muslim or Christians. Okay? So this thing that we're doing over here, it is going to ultimately affect them over there at some point because they're going to have bloodlines cut where this person wasn't making them bow to the family Orisha for 3 generations, and they was Muslims, and and there's going to be conflict. And so they're going to have to adopt this system that we have at some point because their bloodlines are going to suffer just as ours have already, right? Due to the influx of the colonialism. So this spiritualism thing is not like the archetypes of the different types of spirits. There's a commission. So like you have to understand that when you're dealing with Cuban spiritualists, they're only going to have but so many archetypes because that's the only thing that they have reference to. Right? So you go to the people go, oh yeah, well everybody got a gypsy and everything. Yeah. Because this is the culmination of the amount of wisdom that was stirred up into our culture. Right? So that the Gitana, the Egyptian, that when you understand the gypsy, it ain't got anything to do with just Europeans. I took the time to go to the Gypsy Queen's grave in Mississippi, right? Changed my whole thing up. Went to the Gypsy Queen's grave, put some stuff down. The gypsies started talking more. And next thing I know, I find myself in New Orleans, right? Oh, okay, so now we got to go see the Marie Laveau. They don't know where she buried at, but this is one of the places they say, all right, we're going to come and put some stuff down, right? So how that opens up. Now, from that, I'm going to show you how that directly affects everything. So I'm in New Orleans. And then one of my godsons that follows my class, he lives in Louisiana. He was going doing his own research and started looking up some family names of my own family. That there was we got to a dead end where where my grandmother's grandmother, that's the last name that they had, but he shows up at my house with paperwork for my grandmother's husband and his parents. So that I find out that I'm in Alabama because my great-great-grandfather, Charles Goody, was married to a woman named Annie Goody, who was born in Alabama. So now I know why did I end up in Alabama. Aha! Because I needed to touch that land to resurrect these spirits so that they wouldn't be forgotten. So now my Ibaye list of spirits, family spirits, has gotten wider, right? All because I ended up going to see the Gypsy Queen. I went to the Gypsy Queen, and the Gypsy Queen sent me to New Orleans, and bada bing, bada boom, and here I am now. I got some more names in my family. This is how Egun works. It is through the phenomena of, is pushing certain things and those things falling into other things like the domino effect.
And where's the grave?
The Gypsy Queen is in.
Tell her I'll send her the
I'll send you the information. It's in Mississippi. I'm gonna send this to you so everybody could go look it up. It's the Gypsy King and the Gypsy Queen. They originally started in Alabama and then they moved to Mississippi, right? And she was the queen of the gypsies because she taught all of these gypsies how to do what they do, right? And like I said, there's a connection because I had family. My grandmother was born in Akron, Ohio. Her mother was from Baton Rouge, right? Her mother, so we got back as far as my great-grandmother, Sophie Goody. But Sophie Goody's mother's name was Mary Porter, and that's all we had. And then I'm like, well, how did she get this Goody name? And then because Mary Porter was married to Antoine Goody, right? And Antoine Goody was born from Charles Goody and Ann Goody, and Ann Goody's from Alabama. And so this is why, for just any reason at all, I find myself from Brooklyn living in Bessemer, Alabama for 2 years because I had to put my feet on the ground where my ancestors were. You understand? So it's that type of phenomena that Egun is able to pull off.
This is fabulous, and we are way over time. You gave us so much to think about and to learn and to discuss with other people in our circles. People want to know how to follow up with you. Of course, your links were included in the email, but do you want to give a brief overview on your services, your Oriente, Omo Anya? What would you like to tell the people about how they can follow up with you and what they can continue to learn from you?
Well, I mean, really, all right, in terms of the everybody that's up here, that most people up here have OCHA and different things of that nature. What I will offer is the fact that this book is good for your godchildren, for those that they have these questions that you like, what are you talking about? This gives them a foundation. If you look on, I have a website, omidina.com, Omidina Productions, and on there I have classes that just give basic things of how to make a bath, how to clean the house, what incense is good, different kinds of concepts of negative spirits and how they affect us. And it's just a tutorial for the novice so that they have a reference to begin to necessarily get to the real, meat and potatoes of all of this stuff, And I'm really just about necessarily creating curriculum and content for the children. The children that are born in these traditions, that are being raised in these traditions, they need to be able to have answers. So, that's why I did a coloring book, right? For the children, so that there's something that the kids can have, right? That's on Amazon. It got a little keys in there for the children so that they can have some sort of context for their orishas and be able to color it. But it's also for adults if you like to color and that's a part of your therapy and necessarily, expressing yourself or just, decompressing. There's the coloring book. But as far as the Oriente, I'm around. Like, this is what I do. I was trained by first of all, my uncle Oba Ade Dayo Sholade me was a hell of a everything. He was a hell of a spiritualist, a hell of a priest, a hell of a medium. He is the rock and the foundation of all my spiritual enlightenment, right? If it wasn't for my uncle, I don't have Ocha, right? And because my mom died before I was able to go into the room. And so my uncle made that, he made that responsibility of making sure that I got some Ocha, that I didn't get left behind. And so he's one of my first teachers. Then I studied with Abuelo and I studied with Rogelio Shunike before he passed away, and a lot of other elders. So the Oriente thing, if you've ever seen me get busy, you know what it is. That's just as far as the Omuanya thing, I'm not a drummer. I sing more, I can play, but I was sworn to the drum and I was taught for like 10 years with Babu Tig. So this is what I mean, like I went to these different schools of thought to get the information to sit with these people. So I'm in Atlanta right now. I'm around. So, if you need some work done or something, you can, hit the email up. And I do the readings and all that different stuff. And I do misas. So I'm real heavy on the spiritualism. And I have I got a team. I got my comadre who literally walked from Cuba here. She got to Nicaragua and walked from South America into the United States. She has a leg with me, and she is the baddest spiritualist I have ever met in my life. Right? I call her the ghost whisperer. I seen this lady call up like ancient ancestors, be like, how did you know who she is? She say their name and shit, right? And she's a part of my team. And so when I do, like I said, when I get to a place where I don't see anything, I got other people that I bring, other eyes that I bring in, So yeah, just Omidina Productions. You can check me out. If you follow me on Instagram and that, don't get offended. I be having my little rants. It's not to y'all, but a lot of this Orisha business that's going on online, I'd be like, what is going on? And I'm very critical because I feel like if you don't have the reference and the time and the tutelage, you should not be teaching. Like the one-eyed man don't be teaching the blind people nothing. You're just gonna take them to the cliff. So if, like I said, so you want to follow me on Instagram, you just gotta hold, you know what I'm saying? Just hold your pearls a little bit because I be going off. But other than that, yeah, I'm available.
Someone asked if you do spiritual work remotely.
Not so much. I do readings remotely due to the fact that we just went through this year with the pandemic stuff and all that, and people were in dire straits. So I came up with a system that I could throw some shells to somebody from a distance. But I try to be very very clear with that because if you're too far away from me and then something happens and you need to be taken care of, I don't want, to leave you with a, holding a fire in your, in your hands, so to speak. So I try to be careful with that. With the spiritual, from a distance, I wouldn't necessarily do more in terms of having a conversation with somebody. And so I might necessarily put a glass of water in the candle and sit down and have a conversation and just let the ego tell me what he says. And, we work it out from there,
And do you have final words for us?
Final words is to really necessarily indulge yourself in Egun. Egun will alleviate a lot of us from having a lot of bumps in the road. Sometimes, you make Ocha with who you make Ocha with, and sometimes you necessarily separate with them, right? But the more that you cultivate your Egun will have a clearer view of who's for you and not for you. Right? So that you don't find yourself in a situation or a relationship that don't work. Egun has been my therapy. It got me out of a depression that I was suffering for many years. And they made sense of all of the things that were going on with me. And I used to necessarily hate the prophecies that they would come and tell me because a lot of it was very profound, including the death of my own mother. So I had it was a paradox for me for a long time, and I necessarily was depressed. So Egun helped me sort that out, that I was able to maintain my sanity. You understand? And so I recommend it as a lot of people that need what they say with therapy and things of that nature. I feel that a series of good misas should necessarily do the same thing in terms of you spending your money talking to somebody that don't understand your culture. You know what I mean? And
unless you find a therapist who's also
I should. I should. But yeah, I hope everybody health, wealth, and prosperity. You know, and to think more about the children, because the children are the ones that are going to maintain all of this, and they're the ones that will remember us. So it's time for us to really get busy and start putting our all of our efforts into the children, so that they'll be able to defend themselves with all of this new age ultra stuff that's coming down the pipe. You know what I mean?
Yes, and finally, people are still asking, is the book really only available on Amazon?
In the week, it should be back on digital format, because I had some issues where they took it off of digital format. It's cheaper on the digital format if you listen to the ebook. But like I said, unfortunately, because the book has been out for a while, and it's just that I couldn't keep up with the demands, unfortunately. You know what I mean? And I put it in Amazon's hands so that everybody have access to it. Because the coloring book is actually in 3 languages. The coloring book comes in Spanish, English, and French, right? So, I put it up there so that people have access to it. I don't get as much money, but like I said, it's available to the people.
Okay, and so with that, we are closed. Thank you again for picking that fabulous song. Do you know this artist?
Yeah, that's my wife that sings that. She made that song for Mother's Day one, right? And she wanted to be culturally sensitive. She didn't want to just be taking Arisha stuff and all of that. And so we came up with a concept that was to honor mothers. And if anything, if it's exploited, it's a phrase that wouldn't be bad that it's exploited, because who's not gonna honor their mother? You know what I'm saying? So
Everything. She needs to be a guest speaker.
oh, definitely. That's not a problem, because my wife is very mystical. She does Reiki. She does all these different. She's a spiritualist as well, and yeah. So like I said, you got access to it. But the song is made for the people. It's made for us to necessarily spread that as some mantras of love.
Yes, and for the people who missed the intro, you should stick around and listen to it, because we were all going nuts earlier. But everybody, thank you so much. This was such a great talk and informative. We really appreciate your time and your ashe.
Ashe, everybody.
Killing me, Small.
Fuck him up! Fuck him up! Bird bitch try to play me. Heard she was talking crazy. She don't know who I be. I'm the last of the 3 JBs. What? It was 3 JBs, yeah man, it was 3 JBs. One in the penitentiary, one dead, one still in the street. Some niggas real, some niggas hold, some niggas straight fake, some niggas trained to go, some niggas stand up, take the time, won't say shit.